And hello, welcome groupies. We have the lovely Colleen here.
Hello, everyone.
And so we are doing the 7 habits of highly effective people. You've got yours, two
different editions, but same content.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter which one you get. And so last week we did a recorded session on just the first section. It was basically the overview, wasn't it? So for anyone who's got to skip the book, that's probably what I would have done at one stage in my life, possibly sometimes now. But if you just want the good bits, this is a good video to watch as well. So, but yeah, the main thing is the map is not the territory. So what we filter in through our lens is not the world that we're seeing, so we see the world through our lens, but not what the reality of what the world is actually like.
Yeah, and like the really incredible numbers when you think it's 2 million bits of information that's in our arena at any one moment, and out of that we're only getting, was it between 7 and
I think it's 7 plus or minus 2, so between 5 and 9.
Yeah, so it's there's a lot of stuff coming at us, so it's easy to see how we don't all see the same thing, because out of that 2 million bits of information, and I'm getting a different 7 to the 7 you're getting.
Yeah, that's right. It's completely different. So same picture, and it had whether you saw a young lady or an old lady. So there's
which I'll just refresh your memory on that one.
I can see the old lady clear as day.
And now I've got it holding there. I see the young lady.
So and I think everyone would have done this this back. Probably going back, probably 10 years now, but that remember when it was filtering around that blue dress or the gold dress?
Oh yeah.
So whether you saw a blue and black dress or a gold and white dress, I think it was. I saw the blue and black, but it was funny. Same picture you could see, and then everyone's going, I see blue and black, and everyone's going, I see gold and white.
I saw gold and white.
Really? Yeah. So yeah, that, it's just they're great examples of just showing, what we see is different. So yeah, it's fascinating. We're all so different, and that's what I want to get across to everyone, is that, don't compare yourself to everyone, because we're all at different stages. We're all have different wants, different drives, different goals, and also our body's different. So what would work for Colleen mightn't work for me. Like I'm gluten intolerant, so if I had a real pizza, I'm gonna have a pain in the stomach that no one wants to be around me for a while.
I can eat anything.
So, again, we're all different. So just bear that in mind. So we're into habit 1. The first habit, and that's be proactive. So basically what he touch bases here is obviously being proactive. To be proactive, you get things done and you create those habits that you need to make those changes, or access those goals that you want to achieve. But it's also starting to get about your thinking, your language, self-awareness. So what's happening inside us is the first thing that we need to sort of tackle.
Yeah, and the first thing that I highlighted in this section was we are not our moods, we are not even our thoughts.
Yeah. And I sort of highlighted, and I say this a lot as well, is that awareness is the key, and this is where it probably helps define what that is, because he goes, self-awareness enables us to stand apart and examine even the way we see ourselves, our paradigm, the most fundamental paradigm of effectiveness. It affects not only our attitudes, behaviours, but also how we see other people. It becomes our map of the basic nature of mankind. Yeah, so self-awareness is definitely the key. It's because when we talk about habits, sometimes we have to create habits, but sometimes we have to break old habits as well. And that can be our limiting beliefs that we have, or what habits have we introduced into our lives that we're doing that don't serve us in the way that in where we want to go. Because if we're doing those habits that are sabotaging us, sabotaging us of where we want to go, well, we have to look at those habits and go, you know, and start to rethink and relearn new habits that are going to take us to where we do want to go. So that's where that self-awareness is. And I guess it starts with finding out what is it that you want. Really sit down and go, where do I want to be? Even just going 5 years time, where do I want to be in 5 years time? What do I want to do? But what do I need to change to do that? And I guess that comes with values, which I know he talks about as well.
Yes, that there's the genetic determinism, which basically says you are how you are because of your grandparents.
Yeah.
That it's in your DNA. Pardon?
I go for Geelong. Because of my grandparents.
See? Yeah, we are impacted.
Yeah.
And then we have the psychic determinism, which basically says that your parents did it to you. Now, how many of us blame our parents? And there was the environmental, which says that, so whatever environment you're in is doing it to you. So in the example he uses here, your boss is doing it to you, or your spouse is, or your bratty teenager. And how many people do blame their environment for what's happening in their world? But is it?
Yes, I've been guilty of it. I don't know about you, Colleen. Still, you know, and I think that's when you start to know these signs and triggers, that's where that self-awareness comes into it. So where once you might go into this whole scenario in your head and be in it for days and days, or you create that mood and that attitude towards it. But when you sort of pick yourself up and go, oh, here I go again, we're scratching that record and going, okay, look at what you think about, what you're thinking about. I think that's a cognitive thinking. I think that's what it's called, when you're thinking about your thinking. So, and that's where those changes are made, but also just going, okay, you're slowly changing as you're going, and you might not, because those triggers are going to come. You know, you can't sort of stop them, but it's what you do with them after that you go.
Yeah. So, you know, the next time that we, you know, it's a miserable day and it's raining, our attitude and our behaviour doesn't need to reflect that.
Yeah.
That we can still have a sunny outlook on life even though the sun might not be out.
So, and then it goes into the stimulus versus response. So this is what you could look at with, you've got the event plus your response equals your outcome. So this is sort of the stimulus is what's happened, but what is your response to that event that's happened?
How often do we rush in with a response? Something happens and we react.
Yep. Because that's our ego. Yep. And I think that's where you go, oh, and that self-awareness comes in. Before I would have gone, rah, 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 you know, defend. How dare you say that, blah, blah, blah. Whereas now you might go,
count to 10.
or walk away, or whatever. So that is progress. Like that's, if you compare it to something in fitness, like that's you being able to lift, you know, 2 or 3, 5 kilos more than what you used to be able to lift. So or you've been able to run 5 kilometers instead of 2 kilometers. So it's progress like that. So sometimes I think we put so much emphasis on our mind and so much pressure on it that we don't see those improvements that we're making from that. But you are, trust me, you are, you know.
Yeah, that awareness makes all the difference, doesn't it? To actually think about, why did I react that way? What's going on for me that's brought that reaction up?
Yeah, and it comes to, and I think it comes over here, like, it's your freedom to choose. So your response is your choice.
Yeah, so choice is our gift. It's, you know, the only thing that is truly ours.
Yep. Like being responsible. Now I know Marina and myself did a video on above and below the line, and being above the line, taking responsibility. And in the book they talk about being responsible, and if you actually break it down, it's response able.
Yes.
So it's trying to go, you know, you are able to respond in the way that you want to respond, or to get that outcome that you want to achieve. So you have that choice of going, am I going to react and say something that you end up going, I didn't mean it, or I didn't want to say it, or are you going to take a breath, sit on it, or walk away, or, you know, take your time, so then you can respond in the way that you want to respond. Generally, a lot of the time when we've reacted, most of the time we probably regret it.
Yeah. I mean, how many times do you react to something and then spend the next 24 hours beating yourself up, wishing you hadn't said it, or wishing you'd done something different? Well, one of the other things was around the taking initiative. So many of us sit back and wait for something to happen before we move. Like, we wait for a promotion, or we wait for the weather to be right, but we wait. Like, instead of actually making a decision and acting, we spend a lot of time waiting for someone else to create an environment for us to move. Whereas being proactive is making those changes and creating our own opportunities. So as an example, if you were an employee who, you know, you wanted to move up the ladder, but you were just waiting for your boss to give you that opportunity, instead of being proactive and actually asking, what can I do to help me be in a position to move up the ladder? What trainings would I need to do? What actions do I need to start taking to be able to move up the ladder? You're going to have a much better likelihood of actually getting the next promotion, or, you know, eventually moving up the ladder, because you have actually been proactive in, how can I make change? What do you need me to do to be the person to fill this role?
Yeah. And it's also, I think, too, going, all right, I'm going to be the solution based over the problem based. So in that scenario, you can go, okay, what solutions can I propose to my boss to show, you know, what about this, what about this, what about this?
I'm using my initiative. Yeah.
And is that people don't ask those questions, or don't want to take that initiative because of the feedback that they might get.
Yeah.
And people are afraid of feedback, afraid of failure, and then that's, I think,
frozen, stuck. Yeah.
Is that what you think?
Yeah. There's no such thing as bad feedback.
No, that's right. It's always a learning.
Feedback's an opportunity to make change.
Yeah. So it's going to give you power of choice as well. From Oprah, you know, knowledge is power. So the more that you know, the better choices you can make.
Yeah, and that's the more you can know about yourself too. Yeah.
And that's where, the more you know about what it is, who you are, what you want, what you value, what's important to you, then those decisions are going to be easy. It says the difference between people who exercise initiative and those who don't is literally the difference between night and day. He's like, it's not talking about 25 to 50% difference in effectiveness. He's talking about 5,000+% difference, particularly if they are smart, aware, and sensitive to others. So yeah, it goes to show that when you do take that action, instead of waiting,
massive change.
We're only listening to our language. Now,
Yeah.
Again, there's a video to check out, the power of language that Marina and I did as well on reactive and proactive language. So what language are we using? And this is a good one to listen, probably listen first more than anything, about what language are other people using around you, to notice, are they in a using reactive language or proactive language. So for an example, a reactive language, there's nothing I can do, to a proactive language is, let's look at our alternative. That's just the way I am, and that's probably, you think it's your DNA and it's just who I am. I can choose a different approach, is the proactive. He makes me so mad. Probably that's a common one, I would imagine. And I can control my own feelings. So the proactive, and the ones like I can't, you can change it to I choose, I must, you can change that to I prefer, and if only, you can change that to I will. That's a big one. If only I had the time. I finished high school.
It's really heavy blaming, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. So you're putting it outside influences. So that's where you're pushing it out. Hey, it's not me, because if I have to say I'm responsible, I have to look at myself and go, wow. So let's just flick that out. You told me you would do this. You said this. You said that. Put the blame onto other people, and you're actually like, well, I'm responsible for myself. And
actions.
And there was actually a quote where Eleanor Roosevelt, no one can hurt you without your consent. And then, in other words of Gandhi, they cannot take away our self-respect if we do not give it to them. So it's basically saying, what do you say to me? I can either take that on or push it aside.
Yeah, I get to choose.
Yeah, I get to choose. So if anything, if you can take anything basically out of this chapter, that would be it. I would say is that you get to choose in everything that you do.
But how often do we get caught up in the environment? And I know we've spoken about this recently, and doing things that are not only out of our comfort zone, but breach our boundaries.
Yeah.
But because of the environment we're in, we do things that aren't aligned with us.
Or you get the pressure.
The pressure from your peers, or pressure from it can even be the media. You feel that pressure to conform. That it is our choice, and it's such an important thing to remember is we get to choose.
And you can say no.
We have the power to say no.
And I think that's the hardest thing. You go, oh no.
Yeah, I don't like to say no. I like to please everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's also, talking about, raising kids and the way we communicate with them, the letting kids have choice.
Mm-hmm.
Because the earlier we can educate them in being in control of, or being allowed to make choices, the more they're going to be able to choose as an adult. So we want to empower them at a young age to be able to make choices.
Yep. And there's really no bad choices, for the fact that as long as you can take learning and growth out of it, that's where you grow, and that's where you get the best of you, is when you've had to dig deep, or you've had to come out of a problem or a situation, or it could even be a life-changing situation that we've had to go, okay, we've had to turn our lives around, and and get through it. And they're some of the most rewarding, toughest, but character building, soul searching experiences that you can go through. And that makes
the areas that we can't influence, that there's some things in life that we spend our time worrying on, and we're focusing on stuff that we just can't change.
About, well, circle of, because I think what is it, 90% what we think about and worry about doesn't happen, and but also the only thing that we can control is ourselves, not anyone else. So anything outside of ourselves, we have no control over.
I like that.
To proactive focus. So you've got your circle of concern, and then you've got the circle of your influence. I guess it's things that you can control and
the
that
things we can influence.
influence.
Yeah, and the things that are in the circle of concern are the things that we can't change.
No, that's right. So a proactive focus. So on that, your circle of influence is going to be bigger than someone who's in that reactive, negative energy.
So that's where they're spending a lot of time worrying about and focusing on things that they can't change, as to focusing on the circle of influence, all the things they can change.
Yeah. So again, that is stuff that, again, it's inside versus outside. So you can't control anything out there.
Yeah. How much time well, I don't spend so much time there now, but I have spent a hell of a lot of time in the circle of concern. Like, I have spent so much time worrying about things and dreaming, wishing, hoping, or whatever it might be, but all this stuff that there's nothing I can do about it. Like, it's so far out of my control that stopping and realizing it is out of my control and I can't influence any of it. And now I sleep so much better. Like, I have so much less in my head these days, because I'm now more aware of, okay, well, if I can't change it, there's no point in worrying about it.
And I think sometimes you just go, you know what, I can only do what I can do, and if I've done everything that I can do, you just got to leave it up to what will be. I think that's the main thing that I take out of that circle of concern and circle of influence. Circle of influence is in me. Circle of concern is out of problems. Everything outside of me. Was that how you?
Yeah.
I would say too, like, it's just making, he's got here, making and keeping commitments. So this is where I sort of say about your habits and making changes. Make little small changes.
Yeah.
You know, like we talk about the steps, take it one step at a time. You might have a goal up here that you want to achieve, but you're not going to get there until you take that first step, and then you'll take the next step. So little changes. So it might
be. And
be
trusting yourself, like, because when we don't do what we say we're going to do, we beat up on ourselves and that self-trust diminishes. Whereas if we keep our promises and do what we say we're going to do, so keeping them in small bite-sized chunks so it's not too far out of reach, because we can achieve that. So it might be, you know, wanting to go for a run, but you know, you're struggling to get out of bed. So just one day you go, all right, well, I'm going to get my runners on today and I'm going to walk to the letterbox. And then the next day you put your runners on and I'm going to walk around the block. And then, you know, and build it up. Don't go, I'm going to start running, and that's your goal, that's your new habit, but you've never run before. It's like we've got to build up to it so we can build our self-trust.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I used to say I used to go running with a lot of people and help them teach how to run and breathe properly. But I'd run with them and they're running flat out and they go for 100 meters because they think running
and they're done
sprinting. And I go, no wonder you're tired. You're not going to last another 5Ks if you ever go at that speed. I can't keep up with you if you do that either. And then it's going, okay, I used to get people to go, we're running to the next dog pole, then we're going to walk, and we might walk the rest of the way. Then we go, okay, we'll make it 2 Stoby poles. So it's those things, but also if you get that trust in yourself, confidence starts to build.
Yeah, sure.
Think about. Whereas I think sometimes we go, we want this, 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 and this, and we do it all at the same time, and then we can't, and then we ask ourselves, why did I fail at that? Because it's too much. It's too much for us.
And then we beat ourselves up and don't try again.
Yeah, and then it might last for a short time, but we can't. So lasting change is in little chunks. So and just keeping those little commitments to yourself. So what is your main thing that you want to change, and then what is that next step? And like I said, that could be just even if it's water, it could be drinking 1 cup a day, and then you build up to that. So just make it achievable. Ask yourself, what can I do? And then there's promises to yourself. So it's got a 30-day test if you're wanting to test it out and actually start implementing some of these things. So for 30 days, work only in your circle of influence, so what you can control. Make small commitments and keep them. Be a light, not a judge. Be a model, not a critic. Be part of the solution, not part of the problem. And so the application suggestions that he suggests for this chapter for being proactive is for a full day, listen to your language and to the language of people around you. How often do you use hear reactive phrases such as if only, I can't, or I have to? So check around you, see what language is being used. Number 2 is to identify an experience you might encounter in the near future where, based on past experience, you would have probably behaved reactively. Review the situation in the contents of your circle of influence, so what's inside you. How can you respond proactively? Take several moments and create the experience vividly in your mind, picturing yourself responding in a proactive manner. Remind yourself of the gap between stimulus and response, which is what you choose. Make a commitment to yourself to exercise your freedom to choose. Number 3 is select a problem from your work or personal life that is frustrating you. Determine whether it is direct, indirect, or no control problem. Identify the first step you can take in your circle of influence to solve it, and then take that step. And number 4, try the 30-day test of proactivity. Be aware of the change in your circle of influence.
And that is habit number 1.
And then next week we'll be talking about habit number 2, which is begin with the end in mind. That one's a really good one. Thank you, Colleen, as always.
Thank you. It's been lovely.
Look forward to talking with you next week on habit 2. All right.
I look forward to it too.
And we'll see you next week.
Have a wonderful week. Bye.
Bye.